Hello, we're beginning with chapter 48 in the Tale of Despereaux, continuing our story. Last time we read, we learned that Despereaux is going to have to save the princess on his own, and he went to see the threadmaster to get some thread. And his plan for the thread was the same idea that Gregory had with his rope, that if he had the thread, the spool, and he connected it to himself, and he searched the dungeon for the princess, he would be able to find his way back with the thread. On his way, the Despereaux had to go through the kitchen and ended up coming across the cook, who had decided to make some soup to make herself feel better. She saw Despereaux, but did not kill him. In fact, she ended up giving him some soup and opened the door to the dungeon for him to continue on his way. He pushed the thread too hard at one point down the stairs, and the thread disappeared. And Botticelli Rimorso, the evil rat, has found Despereaux and has offered to take him to see the princess. And he is tricking Despereaux and does probably plan on eating him. That's what he found out. So he is following Botticelli right now to the princess. So let's read and finish our story. We should be able to finish. We're very, very close now. So we'll start with chapter 48, On the Tale of a Rat. Have you ever had hold of the tail of a rat? At best, it is an unpleasant sensation, scaly and cold, similar to holding on to a small, narrow snake. At worst, when you are dependent upon a rat for your survival, and when a part of you is certain that you are being led nowhere except to your death, it is a hideous sensation, indeed, to have nothing but a rat's tail to cling to. Nonetheless, Despereaux held on to Botticelli Rimorso, and the rat led him deeper and deeper into the dungeon. Despereaux's eyes had by this point adjusted quite well to the darkness, though it would have been better if they had not, for the things he saw made him shiver and shake. When your eyes adjust to the dark, it's at first when you go into a dark room or you have the lights turned off, it's very hard for you to see anything. But eventually your eyes adjust, meaning they basically kind of change to be able to see better in the dark. And so you're able to see more as you stay in the dark. What did he see? He saw that the floor of the dungeon was littered with tufts of fur, knots of red thread, and the skeletons of mice. Everywhere there were tiny white bones glowing in the darkness, and he saw in the dungeon tunnels through which Botticelli led him the bones of human beings, too. Grinning skulls and delicate finger bones rising up out of the darkness and pointing towards some truth best left unspoken. Despereaux closed his eyes, but it didn't help. He saw it as if his eyes were still open, wide the bones, the tufts of hair, the knots of thread, the despair. "Ha ha, exactly," Botticelli laughed as he negotiated the twists and turns. "Oh yes, exactly." If what was in front of Despereaux was too horrible to contemplate, what followed behind him was perhaps even worse. Rats. A happy, hungry, vengeful parade of rats, their noses up in the air, sniffing. "Mouse," sang one rat joyfully. "Yes, oh yes, mouse," agreed another, but something else too. "Soup," called out another rat. "Yeah, soup," the others agreed. "Blood," sang a rat. "Blood," they all agreed together. And then they sang, "Here, mousey, 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 here, little mousey." Botticelli called out to the other rats. "Mine," he said. "This little treasure is all mine, gentlemen and ladies. Please, I beg you, do not infringe on my discovery." "Mr. Rimorso," said Despereaux. He turned and looked behind him and saw the rats, their red eyes and their smiling mouths. He closed his eyes again. He kept them closed. "Mr. Rimorso!" he shouted. "Yes," said Botticelli. "Mr. Rimorso," said Despereaux, and he was crying now. He couldn't help it. "Please, the princess." "Tears!" shouted the rats. "We smell tears, mousey, we do." "Please!" shouted Despereaux. And there's a picture of him holding on to the tail of Botticelli. You can kind of see the shadows in the background of the other rats. "Little friend," said Botticelli, "little Despereaux, Tilling, I promised you, and I will keep that promise." The rat stopped. Look ahead of you, he said. What do you see? Despereaux opened his eyes. Light, he said. Exactly, said Botticelli. Light. Chapter 49. What do you want, Megari-Sao? Again, reader, we must go backward before we go forward. We must consider for a moment what had occurred with the rat and the serving girl and the princess down in the dungeon before Despereaux made his way to them. What happened was this. Roscuro led the P and Mig deep into the dungeon to a hidden chamber, and there he directed Mig to put the princess in chains. Gosh, said Mig, she's going to have a hard time learning her lessons if she's all chained up like. Do as I say, said Roscuro. Maybe, said Mig, before I lock her up, her and me could switch outfits, so we could start in already with her being me and me being a princess. Oh, yes, said Roscuro. Certainly. A wonderful idea, Miss Miggery. Princess, take off your crown and give it to the serving girl. The P sighed and took off her crown and handed it to Mig, and Mig put it on and it slid immediately right down her small head, and it came to rest quite painfully on her poor, abused ears. It's a biggish thing, she said, and painful like. Well, well, said Roscuro. How do I look? Mig asked, smiling at him. Ridiculous, he said, laughable. Mig stood, blinking back tears. You mean I don't look like a princess? She said to the rat. I mean, said Roscuro, you will never look like a princess, no matter how big a crown you put on your tiny head. You look exactly like the fool you are, and always will be. Now make yourself useful and chain the princess up. Dress up time is over. Mig sniffed and wiped at her tears, and then bent to look at the pile of chains and locks on the floor. And now, princess, he said, I'm afraid that the time for your truth has arrived. I will now tell you what your future holds. As you consign me to darkness, so I consign you too to a life spent in this dungeon. Mig looked up. Ain't she going upstairs to be a serving maid? No, said Roscuro. Ain't I going to be a princess then? No, said Roscuro. Said Roscuro. But I want to be a princess. No one, said Roscuro, cares what you want. As you know, reader, Megari-Sao had heard this sentiment expressed many times in her short life. But now, in the dungeon, it hit her full force. The rat was right. No one cared what she wanted. No one had ever cared. And perhaps worst of all, no one ever would care. I want, cried Mig. Shh, said the princess. Shut up, said the rat. I want, sobbed Mig. I want. What do you want, Mig? The princess said softly. I? Shouted Mig. What do you want, Megari-Sao? The princess shouted. Don't ask her that, said Roscuro. Shut up. But it was too late. The words had been said. The question at last had been asked. The world stopped spinning, and all of creation held its breath, waiting to hear what it was that Megari-Sao wanted. I want, said Mig. Yes, shouted the P. I want my ma, cried Mig into the silent, waiting world. I want my ma. Oh, said the princess. She held out her hand to Mig. Mig took hold of it. I want my mother too, said the princess softly, and she squeezed Mig's hand. Stop it, shouted Roscuro. Chain her up. Go, said Mig. I ain't going to do it. You can't make me do it. I got the knife, don't I? She took the knife and held it up. If you've got any sense at all, said Roscuro, and I heartily doubt that you do, you will not use that instrument on me. Without me, you will never find your way out of the dungeon, and you will starve to death here, or worse. Gore, said Mig, then lead us out now, or I will chop you up into little rat bits. No, said Roscuro. The princess shall stay here in the darkness, and you, Mig, will stay with her. But I want to go upstairs, said Mig. I'm afraid that we are stuck here, Mig, shouted the princess, unless the rat has a change of heart and decides to lead us out. There will be no changes of heart, said Roscuro. None. Cool, said Mig. She lowered the knife. Let me show you this picture here. It's the princess consoling Mig, trying to make her feel better, I think. She wants her mom. There's Roscuro right there. And so the rat and the princess and the serving girl sat together in the dungeon as outside the castle the sun rose and moved through the sky and sank to the earth again, and night fell. They sat together until the candle had burned out and another one had to be lit. They sat together in the dungeon. They sat and sat. And reader, truthfully, they might be sitting there still if a mouse had not arrived. Chapter 50, in which the princess says his name. "Princess!" Despereaux shouted. "Princess, I have come to save you!" The Princess P heard her name. She looked up. "Despereaux!" she whispered. And then she shouted it, "Despereaux!" Reader, nothing is sweeter in this sad world than the sound of someone you love calling your name. Nothing. For Despereaux, the sound was worth everything. His lost tail, his trip to the dungeon, and back out of it and back into it again. He ran toward the princess, but Roscuro, baring his teeth, blocked the mouse's way. The princess cried, "Oh no, Rat, please, don't hurt him. He's my friend." Meg said, "Don't worry, Princess, I will save the Maisie." She took the kitchen knife. She aimed to cut off the rat's head, but she missed her mark. "Whoopsie," said Miggery Sow. What do you think she hit instead of the mouse? The rat. I don't know. Chapter 51. What is that smell? "Ow!" screamed Roscuro. He turned to look at where his tail had been, and as he did, Despereaux drew his needle and placed the sharp tip of it right where the rat's heart should be. "Don't move," said Despereaux. "I will kill you." "Ha ha ha!" Botticelli laughed from the sidelines. "Exactly." He slapped his tail on the floor in approval. "Absolutely delightful. A mouse is going to kill a rat. Oh, all of this is much better than I anticipated. I love it when mice come to the dungeon." And there he is. Roscuro's looking at his chopped off tail, and Despereaux has the needle to his heart, or where his heart should be. So, once again, Miggery Sow has cut the tail off of a rodent. "Let me see," said the other rats, pushing and shoving. "Stand back," Botticelli told them, still laughing. "Let the mouse do his work." Despereaux held the trembling needle against Roscuro's heart. The mouse knew that as a knight it was his duty to protect the princess. But would killing the rat really make the darkness go away? Despereaux bowed his head ever so slightly, and as he did so, his whiskers brushed against the rat's nose. Roscuro sniffed. "What is that smell?" he asked. "Mousy blood!" shouted one rat. "Blood and bones!" shouted another. "You're smelling tears," said Botticelli. "Tears and thwarted love." "Exactly," said Roscuro. "And yet there's something else." He sniffed again, and the smell of soup crashed through his soul like a great wave, bringing with it the memory of light, the chandelier, the music, the laughter, everything, all the things that were not, could never be available to him as a rat. "Soup!" moaned Roscuro, and he began to cry. "Boo!" shouted Botticelli. "Shh!" hissed the other rats. "Kill me," said Roscuro. He fell down before Despereaux. "It will never work. All I wanted was some light. That is why I brought the princess here, really, just for some beauty, some light of my own." "Please," shouted Botticelli, "do kill him. He's a miserable excuse for a rat." "No, Despereaux," said the princess. "Don't kill him." Despereaux lowered his needle. He turned and looked at the pea. "Boo!" shouted Botticelli again. "Kill him! Kill him! All this goodness is making me sick. I've lost my appetite." "Gore!" shouted Meg, waving her knife. "I'll kill him." "No, wait," said the princess. "Roscuro," she said to the rat. "What?" he said. Tears were falling out of his eyes, and creeping down his whiskers, and dripping onto the dungeon floor. And then the princess took a deep breath and put a hand on her heart. I think, reader, that she was feeling the same thing that Despereaux had felt when he was faced with his father begging him for forgiveness. That is, P was aware suddenly of how fragile her heart was, how much darkness was inside it, fighting always with the light. She did not like the rat. She would never like the rat, but she knew what she must do to save her own heart. And so here are the words that the princess spoke to her enemy. She said, "Roscuro, would you like some soup?" The rat sniffed. "Don't torment me," he said. I promise you, said the princess, that if you lead us out of here, I will get cook to make you some soup, and you can eat it in the banquet hall. Speaking of eating, shouted one of the rats, give us the mousie! Yeah, shouted another, hand over the mouse! Who would want him now? Said Botticelli, the flavor of him will be ruined. All that forgiveness and goodness, bleh, fraught. I for one am leaving. Soup in the banquet hall? Roscudo asked the princess. Yes, said the pea. Really? Truly, I promise. Gosh, I make soup is illegal. But soup is good, said Despereaux. Yes, said the pea. Isn't it? The princess bent down before the mouse. You are my knight, she said to him, with a shining needle, and I am so glad that you found me. Let's go upstairs. Let's eat some soup. And reader, they did. Chapter 52, Happily Ever After. But the question you want answered, I know, is did they live happily ever after? Yes and no. What of Roscudo? Did he live happily ever after? Well, the Princess Pea gave him free access to the upstairs of the castle, and he was allowed to go back and forth from the darkness of the dungeon to the light of the upstairs. But alas, he never really belonged in either place. The sad fate, I am afraid, of those whose hearts break and then mend in crooked ways. But the rat, in seeking forgiveness, did manage to shed some small light, some happiness into another life. How? Roscudo, reader, told the princess about the prisoner who had once owned a red tablecloth, and the princess saw to it that the prisoner was released. And Roscudo led the man up out of the dungeon and to his daughter, Miggery-Sow. Mig, as you might have guessed, did not get to be a princess, but her father, to atone for what he had done, treated her like one for the rest of his days. So to atone for something means to make up for something that you did wrong. And what of Despereaux? Did he live happily ever after? Well, he did not marry the princess, if that is what you mean by happily ever after. Even in a world as strange as this one, a mouse and a princess cannot marry. But reader, they can be friends. And they were. Together they had many adventures. Those adventures, however, are another story, and this story, I'm afraid, must now draw to a close. But before you leave, reader, imagine this. Imagine an adoring king and a glowing princess, a serving girl with a crown on her head, and a rat with a spoon on his, all gathered around a table in a banquet hall. In the middle of the table there's a great kettle of soup. Sitting in the place of honor right next to the princess is a very small mouse with big ears. And peeking out from behind a dusty velvet curtain, looking in amazement at the scene before them, are 4 other mice. Mon Dieu, look, says Antoinette. He lives, and he seems such a happy mouse. Forgiven, whispers Lester. Cripes, said Furlough, unbelievable. Just so, said the Threadmaster Hovis, smiling. Just so. And reader, it is just so, isn't it? The end. And there's the final picture of little Despereaux, and there's the king and the Princess Pea. And on the side you can see the mice looking on, watching. I believe right there is Roscudo eating his soup right there. So that's the end of our story, The Tale of Despereaux. I rather like this story. I think it's a really good tale. It's a really fun one. And I hope you enjoyed my reading of it. And I hope that you will pass the AR test, the Accelerated Reader Test, when you take it. And join me next time for my next story. We'll see you then. Bye.